Welcome to Going Through Health with Gordy and Zed.
Where wellness gets a fun twist. I'm Gordy Jenkins, a natural foods entrepreneur, and with me is Dr. Zed DeBout, our resident trained Stanford MD. We are former college swim teammates turned best friends, and now your guide to this crazy world of health trends and fitness hacks with a focus on getting the science right. Get ready for a wild ride. This is Going Through Health with Gordy and Zed. Today, Zed and I will sweet talk you a little, going over the counter and through the blood, exploring continuous glucose monitors, now available without a prescription. Then I'll teach you how to remove your own appendix in a new segment, Astonishing Human Feats, before wrapping up with the fast fire questions. My man, Zed, my co-host, what have you learned while going through health this week?
Gordy, I have a little study for you by the name of Nonlinear Dynamics of Multi-Omics Profiles During Human Aging. And no, that's not a Greek study by our good friend Hippocrates.
No.
So basically, Stanford researchers found evidence that biological aging is not constant. So
Stanford
it looks like
researchers, huh?
Yeah, Harvard researchers could never. They're still trying to figure out.
Harvard kids are clowning on you right now.
Harvard researchers still trying to figure out how to put pants on two legs at a time.
Shit! Tough undergrad.
Harvard researchers still trying to figure out how to create a number one pencil.
Get them, dude. Get them.
Yeah.
I'm just here to play ref to the Stanford and Harvard game.
Anyways, Stanford researchers found evidence that biological aging not constant. So looks like there's very rapid changes that occur around ages 44 and 60, which is kind of random and wild. But yeah, so this study was published in Nature Aging, one of the good ones, on August 14th of this very year. So you ready for some key findings?
Yeah, give me something. Give me something.
So there's these significant molecular and microbial shifts at ages 44 and 60, and it looks like the changes are pretty dramatic and acute. There's not this gradual change. It's this really abrupt sort of change amongst these various molecules and microbes, and they found these distinct molecules and functional pathways associated with these periods. So these include immune regulation and carbohydrate metabolism shifted during the 60-year transition. And then cardiovascular disease, lipid, and alcohol metabolism changed, or there were changes at the 40-year transition. So yeah, once you hit 40, time to reevaluate your drinking and
I assume it gets better. You're just like better at it, so you can drink you can drink more and eat more lipids. Is that what
exactly? Yeah. After 40 and 60, it's the beginning of the beginning. It's a new lease on life.
It's like seasoning like a cast iron skillet or something.
Yeah, so we got a little bit of time, but I actually peeked in our listener analytics, and we have a good chunk of listeners who are at the beginning of the end, so to speak. So cheers to you guys.
Yay! Thanks, guys.
But no, in terms of implications, it's really interesting because you have these aging-related diseases that seem to change really non-linearly. Wow, tough day for Stanford enunciators. Change non-linearly across the human lifespan. And then, so we said mid-40s and early 60s are critical periods for health monitoring. So it looks like there's hopefully some potential opportunities to act or intervene based on insights gathered from these molecular and biological pathway findings involved in these changes. So yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting.
We got like 10 years to figure it out.
Yeah. And the rest of you that are that age, yeah, maybe time to pay a little visit to the old doc.
All right. Wow. All right. Interesting. There's something to scare our older listeners.
Perfect. So before we get into the main subject, well, actually, as we get into the main subject, just wanted to level set. We take a SOAP structure for this. So again, SOAP is just subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. And that's just how in clinical notes, we categorize medical information, and we're borrowing from that for our main subject today. So again, I usually make fun of Gordy for being afraid of soap at this point, but I just wanted to sort of clear the air and say Gordy loves soap. Not just does he love soap, but he's in love with soap. There, are you happy?
I think I'm a very yeah. All right, I'm happy, I guess. Yeah. I'm in love with soap, I guess. I'll be the guy that's in love with soap. It's better than being the guy that, what was it before I vanish or something? I hear about the soap.
Gordy's been researching California marital law to figure out how to marry soap.
Oh,
that's how much he loves it.
All right. Well, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for all this, but I am ready for the subjective and to give you a little bit of a contextualizing anecdote today, Zed. So our subject today is the continuous glucose monitor. So I have this article that I want to share that I've adapted from The Athletic from April of this year. So today I have an extraordinary story about Mason Miller, a professional baseball player whose career trajectory changed dramatically after a diabetes diagnosis. Mason Miller was playing D3 baseball at Waynesburg University, a small school 50 miles south of Pittsburgh. And despite his dedication, Miller struggled on the mound, posting a 7.0 ERA over 2 seasons. And ERA is earned run average. So that's how many runs, if he pitched 9 innings, how many runs he would give up in a full game if he pitched the entire game. So if he pitched an entire game, the other team on average would score 7 runs against him. That's what that means, which is a lot. Isn't ideal for a pitcher. You want to be, 3, 4 for a starting pitcher.
Gotcha.
But he was a local kid with a decent arm, but far from major league material. And after his sophomore year, Miller landed a finance internship at a local hospital. Nice. However, sick.
What a nice indicator of our healthcare system, finance internship.
Yes, exactly. But so right after he landed this finance internship at this hospital, he was required to take a drug test, which was then flagged as diluted. And then when he protested, a second test revealed dangerously high blood sugar levels. So Miller was immediately admitted to the hospital where he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And this diagnosis answered many questions. Miller had been feeling exhausted, losing weight, and his performance on the field had deteriorated. Little did he know, this diagnosis and the ensuing treatment would be the turning point in his life and his career. And though his journey wasn't without challenges, after a stellar junior year with a 1.86 ERA, big improvement.
Much better.
Much better. The COVID-19 pandemic disrupted his senior season. Do you remember that, Zed? The COVID-19 pandemic.
No, but I do remember my season at D3 school.
Exactly. He then transferred to a D1 school, and his hard work paid off when he was drafted by the Oakland A's in 2021. Yeah! In the Oakland A's clubhouse, Miller now proudly shows off his glucose monitor taped to his abdomen.
Miller, please stop showing your abdomen.
Oh, he's so proud. He's so proud. Yeah, he signs them and shoots them into the stand in a T-shirt cannon.
Just always wearing a crop top.
Hey, okay. It's like
look at me.
Is it just me, or is Miller's CGM getting a little lower each time he shows up? All right, but he was proud of it though. Okay, so he proudly was showing off his CGM tape to us, and he should be. So this device, which he changes every 10 days, allows him to track his blood sugar levels in real time via his phone. With the help of the CGM and an insulin pen, Miller has effectively managed his diabetes, leading to significant improvements in his health and athletic performance. And this is wild. So since his diagnosis, Miller has gained weight, muscle, and pitching velocity, standing in now at 6'5", weighing in at 220 pounds, and he was 160 when he was a D3 pitcher. So he's gained 60 pounds of muscle, presumably. So he's 6'5", 220, my size.
Wow, imagine how tall and heavy you could be if you started taking insulin.
Oh, God. All right, well, thanks. I'll look into it after the show. I appreciate it. I'm going to ignore your disclaimer at the end. So now Miller's fastball averages an astounding 100.9 miles per hour. I just checked this. Is the highest fastball average out of started pitchers in the major league all season. So his transformation from a pitcher who barely touched 90 miles per hour to one that throws nearly 104 miles per hour is nothing short of remarkable, Zed. So he literally
remarked.
Remark it again. Mark it one more time. And that is how you know it's remarkable. Because he literally went from mediocre to elite pro athlete. Miller quips, "Mass is gas," as he reflects on his newfound strength and speed.
That's what my wife quips when she Dutch ovens me at night. No, she doesn't. She doesn't. She just laughs. There's no quip.
Okay, good. But now you know what to say.
Yeah.
The impact of managing his diabetes with a CGM has been profound. Before his diagnosis, Miller's performance wasn't even competitive at the D3 level. No offense, buddy boy. But he struggled with stamina and consistency, leading to high ERAs and frustrating games. With the CGM and being on top of his diabetes, he has turned his life and career around, becoming a dominant force on the mound. So Miller's story is testament to the practical, transformative powers of continuous glucose monitors. These devices provide invaluable real-time data, enabling individuals to manage their diabetes effectively and improve their quality of life. And now you don't even have to have diabetes, and we'll get into that today. But for Mason Miller, the CGM didn't just help manage his health, it helped turn him into an elite athlete.
Man, that's wild. It's kind of funny that a drug test led to basically this discovery and the performance enhancing effects of controlled type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
What a freaking competitive advantage to be an undiagnosed type 1 diabetic.
Oh, lucky.
Yeah.
I know, no kidding. I know. I kind of I'm hoping there's something like that in my life. Like,
that's been really holding you back.
My 38-year-old checkup, like the doctor will find out that I've had things in my blocking my ears my whole life, and I'll be able to hear really well or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's not me holding you back. I just want to get that out there now.
No, it is not, and
hopefully it's something medical.
It always is. But that is a subjective. So it is time for the objective. Objectify me, Kevin.
Won't do it. Not yet. But in terms of the objective, so today, as Gordy said, we're talking about CGMs, continuous glucose monitors, and specifically in this case, CGMs that are made for the general public and that can be purchased over the counter. And I always get confused by over the counter. One, because I'm easily confused, and two, because it's confusing. So over the counter just means you can get it without a prescription. But when you go to the drugstore and you have a prescription, they still serve you. There's still a counter there. So there's a Jerry Seinfeld riff. They should Jerry Seinfeld riff in there somewhere.
They should start handing it to you underneath.
At least differentiate
counter. Somehow. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'll write CVS about it.
This week send your emails to CVS. All right. But yeah, so basically we have a couple of major medical device companies that are releasing over-the-counter, non-prescription needed CGMs for more general consumers. So Dexcom has Stelo coming out. Dexcom has Stelo already out. and then Abbott has Lingo that's coming out shortly, and these are both CGM biosensors.
Oh wait, hold on. Let me do it. Lingo.
Stelo.
Oh, okay. I thought we were just saying it in funny ways.
Yeah, I think that would be the remake of Streetcar Named Desire. That'd be like Marlon Brando's Guido boyfriend Stelo.
All right, a little Tennessee Williams reference. Hello, Tennessee Williams.
And now we've lost everyone.
No, back to the interesting stuff. Back about continuous glucose monitors.
Now we've lost all the Stanford researchers. All right, so yeah, continuous glucose monitors. Basically, medical devices, they provide real-time measurements of glucose levels from the interstitial fluid in between cells. So interstellar between the stars, interstitial between the cells, tissues, organs in the body.
Interstellar between the stars, interstitial between your stits.
Yep, in between your interstitials. But no, so they offer, differentiating from typical glucose tests, which we'll get into, they offer a continuous and more dynamic picture of glucose trends. So in terms of components, you have the sensor, and this is that you may have seen, you may have one, or you may have friends or seen it in the media, but basically this small plastic unit, which attaches to this flexible sort of like patch or adhesive. And our boy, was it Mason? Miller.
Mason Miller.
Mason Miller, another two first names or two last names. But yeah,
two professions too.
Two professions, true. He wore his, as we well know now, on his abdomen, but you can also wear them on your upper arm, and they continuously transmit glucose levels via a sensor and transmitter wirelessly to a display device. So the display device it's often a smartphone nowadays. It can be a receiver or a smartwatch, and that just will show you readings and trends. So the sensors being released now over the counter, they're continuous glucose readings. There's different models, but That used to be that the readings were every 5 to 10 minutes, but now they're totally continuous, so constant longitudinal data. And then with the display device, whether it's your phone or whatnot, you can really track these glucose trends over time, and it helps users understand how different factors like diet or exercise or even medication affect their glucose levels. So some of the benefits, and we'll get into more of these later, but it can help, especially in diabetics, help users maintain blood glucose control and also reduce the risk of hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia. But that's more in the case for diabetics. For these over-the-counter CGMs, these are for people who aren't currently using insulin or to manage their diabetes. In terms
why
of
is that? What is if you're using insulin already? Why is it not for you?
It's because kind of per the FDA and the way these devices are marketed, they're meant more for users who are maybe more in the pre-diabetic range and aren't taking insulin, just because there's a different sort of process for FDA clearance for these devices, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So in terms of usage, so we mentioned diabetes management. It's originally and still primarily used by individuals with diabetes, both type 1 and type 2. But now it's sort of expanding to the general population and used in everyone from people like you and I or professional athletes and not just people who already have the diagnosis. So why is it important? Basically, why should diabetics have all the fun? No. So, hey, some of my best friends have type 1 diabetes.
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure.
and now I know why they're such good athletes. It's all coming together.
You think you have the type 1 diabetes pass?
the insulin PEDs. But no, so it's important for people who haven't been diagnosed and who just want to have another gauge or biosensor to track their health, because basically metabolic dysfunction isn't binary where you either have it or you don't. So not talking about type 1 diabetes here, but for type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes, it's not a either or, you have it or you don't. So kind of like, to use a weight gain analogy, you don't go from 200 or what was Mason Miller, 160, and then wake up the next day and you're 220. It's gradual over time, and gradually you're putting on weight and more muscle or maybe fat in the case of being overweight or metabolic dysfunction. So you don't wake up and you're overweight or obese the next day. It's a gradual process. Same with type 2 diabetes. It's a gradual process. And so continuous glucose monitors can be really important for measuring metabolic dysfunction before it may pop up in a routine doctor's visit where you're already in the red, so to speak, for diabetes.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that. A little proactive.
So to briefly define metabolic dysfunction at a high level, simple definition. So it's dysfunction in how we metabolize fuel sources. So sugars and fats are the two big ones. And this affects over 50% of US adults and 30% of children, metabolic dysfunction, which I guess
Whoa. Say that again. 50%, over 50. So most Americans, over half Americans have metabolic disorders or dysfunction.
About a third of children. So this is the U.S. But
wow,
it shouldn't be
kids. Catch up, kids.
Yeah, behind. No child left behind.
Yeah, let's get them going.
But it shouldn't be too surprising given the NIH stats around obesity, that adults ages 20 and older, 77% of men and 69% of women are overweight or obese. So all those metabolic dysfunction diseases kind of go hand in hand.
That's a lot. I mean, that you're almost at the point where we should just agree to like recalibrate all of our scales and just start over again.
Requalify what it is. Hey, give ourselves a chance.
Just zero it at like, first tear at like 46 pounds.
But no, so basically metabolic dysfunction at a more cellular and subcellular level involves mitochondrial dysfunction. And this is impacted by factors like diet, exercise, sleep, toxins, mental health. All of these things figure into the equation. But I bring this up because it's mitochondrial dysfunction and these other processes that can lead to maladaptive glucose and fat metabolism in the cell. And so that then causes these issues in insulin signaling and sensitivity, as well as glucose uptake from the blood. And that leads to these pathologic levels of insulin and blood glucose. So I know there's a lot of information there, and I'll break it down a little more simply. But basically, there's all these interconnected maladaptive processes downstream of this metabolic dysfunction. And these include immune system activation, chronic inflammation, oxidative damage, and glycation. And glycation is a fun, well, not a fun, it's a very serious example of some of these things that happen from just this excess sugar floating around in your blood. So glycation.
I was looking up learned a little fun thing about glycation, how it's related to the Maillard reaction. You know, like the non-enzymatic, I think it's called non-enzymatic browning of something, non-enzymatic browning, and it's similar to that reaction of which I'm sure you're going to get into, of like a protein, a sugar, and heat, and creating a reaction. But
that's really interesting. Yeah, I only know about the Maillard from all the cooking shows I've watched.
Exactly,
but didn't connect that to glycation. But that makes a ton of sense. So exactly like you said, glycation is the non-enzymatic binding of sugars to proteins or lipids or nucleic acids. So that could happen in your food, but it can also happen in your body. And so it leads to this formation of end products, AGEs. But basically, it's just these sugars sticking to other things in your body and kind of gunking things up, and probably not in a tasty way, I would guess. But to give a couple examples to really drive it home.
Please do.
Vascular damage. So that's glycation of proteins in your blood vessels, and that can lead to stiffness and loss of elasticity, and that contributes to chronic disease like hypertension and atherosclerosis. So it's this vascular damage that's a major contributor to all kinds of cardiovascular disease in individuals with diabetes. So that's something on the inside. If you're like, hey, I don't care what I feel like or look like on the inside, I just care about what I look like, I got one for you. So there's also loss of elasticity in the skin, glycation of I'm wrinkling.
Oh no, my skin is baggy.
Yeah, Gordy loves soap, hates baggy skin.
Facts.
But no, so glycation of collagen and elastin fibers in the skin leads to their cross-linking and stiffening. So kind of a similar process, but skin. And then this results in that reduced baggy skin elasticity and wrinkling and sagging. So, and hey, if you don't care about what's on the inside or about what's on the outside, but you do care about being able to see the world, glycation also affects your retina.
Oh,
wow.
It does?
Ooh.
How does it affect my retina? In a good way?
Yeah, so you'd be surprised. And not to brag, but I have a couple retina specialist friends. They'd be all like, blah, 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 retina this, glycation that, blah, blah. We're surgeons. But yeah, so basically glycation, and this gets pretty technical in the weeds, but glycation is like staring at a very, very mild eclipse for a very long time in terms of it being damaging. So those are my words, but probably theirs too. But that's how I like to think about it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So anyways, a couple tangents there, and we're really oversimplifying here, but we can do multiple future episodes on mitochondrial health and stuff. But the main point here is that metabolic health is very important for everyone, and CGMs are a way for us all to monitor it.
There we go. Hell yeah, Zed. That was the powerhouse of the episode right there. Thank you. Thank you for that verbal ATP.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Hey, let's take a quick second and hear from our sponsors today. You ever wonder if your blood sugar is spiking as fast as your fastball? Introducing Glucose Speed, the only radar gun that clocks pitch speeds and monitors blood sugar. Alright, good job, sport. At 95 miles per hour and 130 milligrams per deciliter. Is that good? That's right. Whether you're throwing heaters or battling carb crashes, Glucose Speed has you covered. Perfect for athletes, diabetics, and anyone who likes to overanalyze. Glucose Speed. Because why measure just one thing when you can obsess over two? Not FDA approved. May cause confusion, sad obsession, and inappropriate use of baseball gear. Batteries and carbohydrates not included. Welcome back, everyone. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and rate us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, YouTube if applicable. New episodes Monday morning at Going Through Health Podcast on Instagram. Lots of good clips on there, Zed. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Gordy. We are talking about continuous glucose monitors, and I think it's time to break down our impressions and share some asides as part of our assessment.
All right. So, Zed, you can't talk about continuous glucose monitors without mentioning Dexcom's Stelo. Stelo is the first FDA-approved over-the-counter continuous glucose monitor. and it works with FSA and HSA. That's flexible spending account, health savings account eligible. It comes in one box that includes 2 sensors for 30 days. Each sensor should last up to 15 days, although their statistics show that on average, only 77.9% of Stelo sensors may not last a full 15 days, and 10% may not last to 12 days. But the idea is you can buy this for 1 month and have, or you can buy one order, have 2 CGM, and you could do all this, Zed, for a one-time price of $99 per box.
Yikes.
But wait. With a monthly subscription, Zed, what if I told you I could bring that price down to $89 per month?
Is this our ad or is this our
No.
segment?
This is real. But I will say they're really like pushing it as a kind of a lifestyle thing. You know, they have different kinds and decorative over patches, as they're called, that you can put on your CGM. So you could have one that has like a dog or a canoe, or like a pine tree.
You really want to go camping?
Yeah. So there's a lot of outdoorsy stuff. They really know their psychographic. It seems they didn't have any that had like a cupcake on it, for example.
There's not ones with like a hospital bed or like a guy sitting alone.
There's nothing like that. None of that. But it also, which is kind of cool, and like for swimmers, it's waterproof. Like pretty, believe it or not, their website says it's very waterproof and that it doesn't just fall off. So take that with a grain of salt. They have a blog with a very diverse group of young people from all different walks of life, just laughing it up, eating burgers. I didn't read the article, Zed. I'll be honest. I looked at the stock photo and I was like,
I think I got it.
I think I know enough about you guys. But they also have an app. So like you were saying earlier, this all connects to the app. And what's cool about it, it should be easy. There's no finger prick, Zed's college nickname, involved. I set myself up. I set myself up for that one. I set myself up. But yeah, there's a bunch of third-party stickers if that's your thing. But people are excited. People online, and a lot of the athletes, people that are just looking for a little extra nuance and a little extra information and data into themselves. So I'm kind of excited about it myself.
Man, it sounds like they're building a whole ecosystem around this. And just so it doesn't look like we're giving favoritism to Dexcom in case one of the other big medical device companies wants to throw a lot of money at us for another ad. But Abbott is also coming out with their own shortly this fall.
And you know what, Zed? I like
Lingo.
Abbott. With a name like Abbott, it's good.
Good. I like them both equally, unless one of them needs to be liked more.
I agree. It's up to you guys. Balls in your court. You let us know which one we should like more. And we'll give our Venmos at the end of the episode.
Sounds good.
But yeah, so I just wanted to share a little bit with that. How about you, Zed? You found anything particularly interesting?
I think the call out here too is that they are intended for, well, they give the age over 18. So this is from the FDA. They're intended for anyone over 18, but they really specify users who do not use insulin. So it can be individuals with diabetes treating their condition with oral medication, or really they seem to be marketing it most towards people without diabetes who want to better understand how diet and exercise can impact these blood levels. So I actually got this text from one of my type 1 diabetes buddies, but no, he had just mentioned, I didn't hear.
I hope this person's listening and just knows that, like, even when we're not doing a type 1 diabetes episode, it's how Zed describes you. No, I'm just kidding.
But no, apparently there's implantable devices coming up. So not just ones that stick to your abdomen or upper arm, but there's this one called Eversense. And basically he said, think about it as a sexy diabetic Nexplanon. So that birth control bar that you can implant in your upper arm. But so yeah, it's an implantable device that athletes can use. But it's a really interesting ecosystem. But anyways, not to dwell too much on that.
There's a birth control bar that I can implant on my arm.
Gordy, we got it. All right, one of our guests is going to really explain a lot of this stuff to you. We'll save it for another episode.
Oh man, I have a lot to learn. I could be getting pregnant at any moment.
Do you not have a bar in your arm right now?
No.
All right. So Well, I know you asked before and I took us on a little tangent, but here are a couple things that I came across that I found super interesting. And you can be the judge of whether they are interesting or not. But we had talked a little bit about how CGMs can be used for early detection of prediabetes and how it's more of a gradual slope rather than a sudden change. But basically, so for example, I have so many friends. I'm coming across like a lot of friends. Don't worry. I don't have that many friends. But I have another friend who's fit and thin and active, but he actually discovered he had a high blood sugar during a recent annual physical. So that just points towards typically you have the standard test to diagnose prediabetes or diabetes, and it's called a fasting glucose test or an oral glucose tolerance test. So very similar tests. One just goes beyond the fasting, and I'll get into that shortly. But these are all done by your healthcare provider, and they assess how well your body is processing the glucose over a period of time, and then it provides an evaluation of that glucose metabolism. So basically, do you want to know the procedure?
I do. I really do. I do. Right, please.
For the oral glucose tolerance test, OGTT. So basically, you fast overnight, 8 to 12 hours. Not too hard, hopefully. A baseline fasting blood glucose level is measured. And then, this is the fun part, you get to drink a syrupy glucose solution, usually containing around 75 grams of glucose.
Nice. Little hummingbird diet, huh?
And then, so they'll take the blood samples at specific intervals, usually about 1 or 2 hours after drinking that solution. And then so that measures how the glucose is processed. So quick quiz, Gordy. I want you to guess how many grams of sugar are in a 20-ounce bottle of Mountain Dew.
I was thinking, I feel like 12 ounces, 50 for a Coke or something. I don't know. So I'm gonna go with 12. We'll go with 75.
Oh, so close. Yeah, 77. So I'm going to count that.
Really?
77 grams. So 2 grams more than they use in the glucose tolerance test, where they're basically loading you with this huge bolus of sugar to see how your body handles it.
Whoa, so, that's crazy. That we're beyond clinical levels of sugar.
where they're really trying to see what can happen with a massive amount of sugar.
Did you know that speaking of Tennessee Williams, in Tennessee, actually, Mountain Dew was originally invented in the 1940s to be a mixer with moonshine. It was meant to be just like a one thing you could mix with your moonshine.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's why it's so sweet. Something
to cut it. Got to cut the moonshine. Also bad for your retinas.
Only if you pour it in your eye, though. But no, so I don't know. Yeah, I can see them being like, well, a lot of endocrinologists use this much sugar in the clinic. So yeah, why wouldn't we put it in our drinks?
Right.
9 out of 10 endocrinologists recommend this in their clinics. But basically, anyways, enough fun about the sugar. But so these tests really provide a data snapshot. So maybe you would get them once a year or at that annual physical, like my friend. But it's a very different type of data from the data you get with a continuous glucose monitor.
So I was just going to ask, what type 1 diabetes charity event did you go to and meet all your friends?
It was a charity event for me. It was I don't have friends charity.
Good. Nice.
And it just happened to have a lot of very nice type 1 diabetics.
Good. No one's saying they're not, all right?
Interesting. You don't think type 1 diabetics would be nice?
No, they're very sweet. Very sweet.
Interesting word choice. But yeah, so basically real quickly, in terms of glucose level ranges, everyone's like, oh, what should my glucose be? What should my glucose be? Enough. I'm going to tell you. So normal range, the textbooks and my medical lecturers are like, fasting blood glucose levels that less than 100 milligrams per deciliter is normal. Prediabetes between 100 and 125 milligrams per deciliter. And then diabetes itself, the big kahuna, blood glucose levels 126 or higher on 2 separate tests. Got to get it twice, folks, to qualify. So there is, however, evidence to suggest that a more optimal range for healthy levels may be closer to 70 to 85, which is quite a bit lower than that 100 baseline we talked about before. But bringing all this back to the concept of pre-diabetes, elevation of that fasting glucose isn't even the first domino in the chain in metabolic dysfunction, and it really is something of a lagging indicator. So I was googling around trying to find a nice framework for this. And Dr. Mark Hyman, he's a pretty prolific podcaster and writer, and you don't have to agree with everything he says, but he described these 6 stages of insulin resistance, which I thought were pretty interesting and kind of fascinating. Stages 1 through 4 of insulin resistance aren't even
Denial.
Our denial, anger,
bargaining,
bargaining, and all of those precede what would be discovered.
6 is diabetes,
and 6 is diabetes, and that's when you know you're over it.
Yeah,
whatever it was. But no, so stage 1. So during that oral glucose tolerance test, we talked about insulin spikes sharply 30 minutes, 1 hour, and 2 hours after consuming the glucose drink, even though your blood sugar levels, which is what it's normally measured, may still look totally normal. So that's stage 1. Stage 2, again, those fasting insulins. So fasting, so rather than post-drink, now you're fasting insulin. Do I keep saying it wrong? Fasting insulin. I'm saying it to the point where it no longer sounds
it doesn't sound like a real word.
Yeah.
I don't even want to tell you what word always does that with me. We'll keep moving.
Okay. So stage 2, your fasting insulin levels are high, but your blood sugar levels are still normal, both while fasting and after the oral glucose tolerance test. So stage 3, your blood sugar and insulin levels. So finally, your blood sugar levels, along with your insulin levels, go up after drinking the glucose solution or the Mountain Dew at 30 minutes and 1 hour and 2 hours. And then stage 4, your fasting blood glucose levels rise above 90 or 100, along with that fasting insulin. And then stage 5 and stage 6 is basically gets into those fasting blood sugar levels going above 126, which is that level for diabetes. And then stage 6, finally, those insulin levels, which were the first thing to rise, they actually start to drop. The pancreas begins to fail, and then your fasting blood glucose levels continue to rise. All right. I know that was a lot, so I'm going to give a little analogy to help.
Please do.
All right, so man, it really is turning into the Friends episode. So
for you,
when you're little and you like have a friend over and you're playing outside. So in this case, you and your friends are the glucose, and your mom or your parents are the insulin, and your house is the cell. All right, does that make sense?
All right, I'm working.
All right, me and my friends, glucose, parents, insulin, and then house, the cell. All right, so I have one friend over. We're like playing around outside. My mom comes out of the house and she's like, "Hey guys, time to come in. We can hear because it's just the two of us. We're not that distracted." She's like, "Come on in." So the insulin is fine. It brings the glucose into the house, into the cell. All right, I have a couple of friends over and we're having a little bit of a party. And my mom comes out. She's like, "Hey guys, time to come in. We're not listening because we're having a good time." Mm-hmm. And so she has to raise her voice a little bit, raise those insulin levels. Get in the freaking house. And she would never say freaking. She'd say, hey guys, hey, please get into the house. It's time for dinner. And so me and my friends, we come into the cell house.
What an impressionist.
All right, now it's my birthday. It's my birthday party. All of my friends are here. My type 1 diabetic friends, the other friends that I mentioned, my retina friends. And it's a big old party. And my mom comes out and she's screaming. She's like, "For the last time, everyone get in the house." And so we all finally come into the house. We're like, "Okay, Mom, the insulin levels have risen enough. We'll go into the cell." All right. Case number 4.
I like that.
Me and you are having a joint birthday party. It's chaos. We're outside. There's water balloons. There's cake. There's just sugar everywhere. And we're having the time of our lives. And why shouldn't we? It's our birthday. And then our parents are coming out of the house. They're like,
"How old are we at this point?"
we're 40. So we're about to really take a turn in our longevity.
All right.
But our parents, they come out and do they start yelling? No, you know why? Because they've given up. It's too much, they say.
Because they're old. They're too old at this point.
Yeah, they're too old. The pancreas is failing. The insulin levels are dropping. And so we stay outside of the cell and we're partying it up. And the world slowly dies around us. So that's my analogy.
All right. Hey, love it. That was good. Actually, I really like that, Zed. I like that. I'll touch back on that when it's my turn.
Okay. So to wrap that up, this isn't a new concept. So there was a 1992 study in the Lancet that stated the following results, and I quote, "The development of type 2 diabetes is preceded by and predicted by defects in both insulin-dependent, our parents, and insulin-independent glucose uptake. The defects are detectable when the patients are normal glycemic, normal blood sugar, and in most cases, more than a decade before diagnosis of disease."
Oh, wow. So we can learn something. early.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
So-
Am I understanding this correctly?
It sounded like you really understood the analogy.
Whoa! Wait a second. Everything just clicked for a really. All right, I had no idea what insulin was until now, or sugar. All right, this is good.
All our Harvard researcher listeners saying the same thing. We
Yeah,
get it now.
Take notes, dorks.
Yeah, so that was one of the things I found really interesting. This concept of prediabetes being much more of this longitudinal thing that we can intervene at or discover earlier. So, all right, my next thing that I found pretty interesting is you know what, Gordy, you're special.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and so is everyone else.
Oh, god damn it.
But basically, so we all respond to different foods and combinations of foods differently. We have different microbiomes, lifestyle behaviors, genetics, pancreatic function, insulin sensitivity, etc. But interestingly, I'm gonna talk about another study. Is that okay with you?
I
be
like
quick.
these studies.
Okay.
I like these,
All right.
so you can keep going.
So this one's called Personalized Nutrition by Prediction of Glycemic Responses.
No, it's like this. It's called Personalized Nutrition by Prediction of Glycemic Responses.
You're right, that's the one. and it's in Cell, so you know it's good. Nature, Cell, those are the good ones.
Good.
And then, so the objective of this study, they were interested in learning how individual differences in gut microbiomes influenced basically your sugar responses to various foods, your glycemic responses. So is if Gordy eats a Cheeto and I eat a Cheeto, are we seeing different results or different results with different foods or the same foods, et cetera? So, and then they also sought to develop personalized dietary recommendations to manage those blood glucose levels based on that individual data. So not to get too much into the methodology, not because it's not important, but because it's a little less interesting, but basically they used CGMs for a week, dietary intake logs, and gut microbiome sequencing. And then they use machine learning algorithms, so hot right now, to kind of correlate those glycemic responses with their dietary habits, as well as their microbiome composition. All right, key findings. Very interestingly, they found significant variability in these glycemic responses to the same foods among different individuals. So that really highlighted the influence of personal microbiomes. So to quote them, they found a high variability in the responses to identical meals, suggesting that universal dietary recommendations may have limited utility. What do you think about that?
Well,
did you learn something?
It's a lot to think about. No, that actually is really interesting. And I joke, but it is a lot to think about because it really does kind of just shift nutritional labels, nutritional facts to dietary needs. It's cool. So it's super idiosyncratic to the person and your gut biome. And like, if you have a healthy gut biome, like you could totally, yeah. All right, cool. It's like if you have like same music, but you have like a good set of speakers and like a cheap set of speakers, and it's like the same input, but like one's going to end up sounding a lot better than the other one. And I guess it's kind of just like the more conducive environment for it. That's cool.
It's the friend and analogy episode, but yeah, I just think it's so wild, and they do so many of these nutrition studies on these populations, and then make these generalizations or findings, but on the individual level, everyone's responding. I mean, even in just this study, individuals respond to the exact same meals very differently from a glycemic level. So I don't know. I just thought that was wild. So they also found that specific microbes were associated with higher or lower glycemic responses to particular foods. And then they were able to use that data to make this predictive model, incorporating that microbiome data, the dietary habits, and those other personal factors. And they were actually able to accurately forecast individual sugar responses to these different meals, which is wild.
Wow.
And then, of course, based on that data, they could recommend personalized meals and types of foods on this to improve the glycemic control compared to generic dietary advice. So pretty cool. And I don't know, it makes me feel a little bit better that, I don't know, not just that I'm special and you're special, but that just because things work for other people or don't work for me doesn't mean that there's not something that I can find that really helps me out, if that makes sense.
No, I like that for sure. And I'm glad you look at life that way. So it's instead of I feel like, because like my first reaction was the other way, and I'm just like, oh no. Everything I've been told is healthy is killing me.
And that could very well be true. I don't want to argue you out of that position.
I got to eat more bad foods.
but no, in terms of future research, so a ways to go, but but further studies could explore like these various interventions to modify that gut microbiome to optimize glycemic control and even prevent some of these metabolic diseases. So to tie this all back to CGMs, you can really get to know your food responses like the back of your own hand and not have to rely on these more generalized dietary prescriptions or carb or glycemic index or I know info from Red Bull or not Red Bull, Mountain Dew, moonshine advertisers.
There we go. That's me.
All right. Last thing, there's just so many interesting things with these CGMs and blood sugar, but basically one of the reasons that CGMs can be very helpful beyond just being continuous and that longitudinal data set is they also provide insight into glycemic variability. So as you might imagine, sort of that stable sugar level is good. That's a good sign that you're metabolizing sugar well. But if you have a bunch of variability, you're seeing these like blood sugar spikes up and down, and so it's that variability in those spikes that can cause that physiological damage we discussed previously. So you can actually see high variability in individuals whose glucose readings fall within standard ranges. So even though your blood sugar levels might fall below that 100 level, if you're seeing a ton of those miniature spikes and variability, that's not a good sign. So you have that magnitude of the spike is this one insight that you can see post meals, and then you can have that area under the curve, so sort of that duration by spike amplitude, and all of these. So more frequent, larger magnitude, longer duration spikes are bad. Good, you want to see stable, fewer spikes of lesser magnitude, and then a rapid return to baseline.
All right, that makes sense. That's cool. I want to play with one. I want to try one of these.
Yeah, we'll definitely. So we'll get a guest on microbiome specialists, and we can get into a little bit more of this. And yeah, we'll also do a follow-up episode so that we can play around with this a little bit and get to the bottom of our own sort of responses to these foods. But yeah, and then last thing that you can pick up on CGMs that you might not be able to with the more traditional tests is one of the things is this dawn effect. And so this is this early morning increase in blood glucose levels between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. in individuals with diabetes. And so there could be hormonal influence, but basically it results in this elevated fasting blood glucose on waking, even though you don't have any food intake during the night. And research suggests that its presence, this sort of dawn effect presence or changes in magnitude of that presence can signal increases in insulin resistance. So just another of these early indicators or warning signs that you wouldn't necessarily pick up on the oral glucose tolerance test at your doctor's.
I wonder how much of these like apps and stuff will just tell you this, and how much, how much data interpretation they do. Yeah. Seems like a pretty good amount in terms of like, keeping your ranges normal and having your historical data and all of that.
And that'll definitely be one of the things to follow. And we'll get into some of the potential pitfalls or challenges a little bit later. But yeah, totally agree. And then last thing, have you ever had one of those? Have you ever had like a big carby breakfast and then later you're feeling a little weak-kneed and wobbly and a little blood sugar? Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah.
So that's called reactive hypoglycemia. And on a glucose monitor, you would see this glucose spike, and then your blood sugar levels would plunge below your baseline. And so, yeah, like you said, or like I said, you may have experienced this subjectively sometime after a predominantly carb-heavy meal, as like your knees weak, palms sweaty, only ate mom's spaghetti. He's nervous, but under the surface, insulin is calm and ready. So, but yeah, so that's reactive hypoglycemia. Again, these are all things that you could pick up on your CGM, but just interesting ways to apply it in your everyday life.
Hey, man, you got me applauding reactive hyperglycemia or hypoglycemia or whatever. Yeah, awesome, go! All right. All right.
We don't want that, folks. It's not a good thing.
No. That sluggish feeling is not good, even though Zed made it sound very cool. All right, Zed, here's the kicker. And you know what? I'm just going to live cut half of this because I really feel like how you explained it was great, and I really appreciate the way you do it. But just quickly, I just wanted to point out, I've seen a lot of athletes and people wearing them, and I was just kind of interested in what they're learning from that. Because, through the research that we've done, we learned that like exercise, stress, sleep, medications, illness, all of those impact blood glucose levels, and different types and intensities of exercise affect glucose differently for exercise. So like a stress, poor sleep, all of that can affect it. And monitoring these factors and adjusting your routines, medications, lifestyle habits can help you maintain more stable glucose control. But I'll just give you like one quick example of how one would use a CGM and what kind of insight they would get from it as an athlete. As you mentioned earlier, big important part of our health is that metabolic flexibility, which is that efficient switching between using fats or carbs as energy. And that's purportedly what it can measure. So let me just go over one for you, Zed. For example, so let's say we're doing a low intensity workout, like under 45 minutes, an easy bike ride or yoga or something like that. And I'll kind of just walk you through real fast what you should be seeing. And I'm getting some of this information from Dr. Colleen Golick's article on levels.com, which is a website about metabolic health written by one of Zed's heroes. So a low intensity workout, I'll break it down. So what do you want to see from your CGM to optimize performance during competition? If you perform low intensity exercise, your blood sugar should not rise. In fact, you may see a brief dip in blood glucose at the onset of exercise while your body uses the readily available glucose already in circulation. It's a quick and easy fuel source. And in combination with stored fat. And since the intensity of exercise did not get high enough to cue your liver to mobilize stored glycogen, after you burn through small amounts of glucose in circulation, your blood sugar should be steady as you primarily use fat for energy. For example, there, the CGM insight, blood glucose should remain steady after an initial slight dip. And like the fueling insight you would get from it would be no extra fuel is needed, nor will additional fuel enhance performance at this point. And so these, because we chose a low intensity, short duration exercise, that the glucose already in circulation and the stored fat will be preferentially utilized as fuel. And so depending on what you're doing, just say a high intensity 60 to 2 hour long workout, like a tri or a marathon, your CGM could show you dips in glucose levels during the prolonged activity. And that insight, you could know exactly how many carbs you're going to be needing per hour, getting those 60 grams, let's say, of carbohydrates an hour so you don't start crashing and things like that. So I just thought that'd be really interesting to try out as someone who really loves performance science and sports and things like that. So when we do finally try these out, that's the aspect I'm most excited about, is how it influences the exercising and things like that.
I'll definitely be revisiting some of that for my 2 hour marathon that I do.
Yeah, you got to run really fast.
Yeah. No, I think there's this whole ecosystem in space that and this is something else that my buddy mentioned. Sorry, I'm just pulling up exactly what he said because yeah, you'll have, as athletes, there's so much money and work and training that goes into optimizing performance, and this is just another tool to help. I mean, it's obviously not just for athletes, but I do think the athlete component and the sports optimization component different than Mason Miller, but still is a way to help from everything from recovery to like race day or whatever the case may be, and it's applicable to us too in our daily lives, just to feel better and maybe do a little bit better on our Peloton workout or in the gym and not be dying or having that hypoglycemia from bad habits.
Fuck that shit. You're so right. All right, Zed. How about you hit us now with the big three bangers for today? What are the GTH big three bangers of continuous glucose monitors?
All right. So banger number one, we talked about this maybe a little too much, but basically a spoonful of prevention helps you not need the medicine to go down. Again, using a CGM to monitor your blood sugar, you can get ahead of types of pre-diabetes or pick up on some of these signals that your metabolic health might not be optimal. And the earlier you can identify these things, the earlier you can intervene and save yourself a lot of time, money, and basically physiological sickness and chronic health issues long term. So again, prevention key and across all of medicine, but in this case, specifically diabetes and pre-diabetes.
All right.
Number two, banger. Your doctor is sweet, maybe, but agency, I think you'll find, is a little sweeter.
I like it.
So this basically is just looking in a positive way at this technology. Is that it's good news. We have the power as consumers. That data can be empowering. We have agency over our day-to-day behaviors and possession of that data. We don't really have to rely on insurance or infrequent doctor's appointments, et cetera. Yes, there's a cost barrier, and we'll get into that access point a little bit later, but we are able to go in over the counter, under the counter, through the woods, get that real-time data to how our body's responding to all kinds of these variables. Like Gordy mentioned, everything from sleep, exercise, diet, of course, rather than just that yearly snapshot at our clinician's office. So, and I think, and you tell me what you think, Gordy, but I think this can really help with perspective. So you've probably heard the term food as medicine, but basically not really battling against food and food cravings as the enemy, but really leveraging food as a tool to really empower ourselves and have a lot of control via these biofeedback and data that we get to optimize both our like day-to-day, everything from fitness day-to-day to our long-term health.
Totally. I'm excited about this.
Yeah. So really quickly here, because I just wanted to throw in something a little more actionable, and we could do a whole episode on this itself. So I think we will revisit this, but there's a lot of really fascinating studies and things that are measuring what you can do to sort of these interventions that you can use to manage your blood glucose and decrease it. So basically, I mean, the big one, which might be pretty intuitive, is activity exercise, this concept of exercise snacks. So even something as simple as 10 air squats or a couple push-ups once an hour or every 30 minutes, just being sort of vaguely active throughout the day, or walks after meals. These things can be super powerful in driving that glucose into your cells, driving the kids into the house and cutting back on those dangerous glucose levels.
That's cool.
Everything from sleep hygiene, stress management, diet, so cutting out the sugar, processed foods, and adding like healthy fats and proteins and fiber to meals. Those can all reduce blood sugar spikes. Again, all these things work in concert, and there's so much information there. But yeah, we'll do a separate episode. But I just wanted to throw in those things as a couple things you can do in terms of concrete interventions.
Cool.
All right, last big three banger, sweet CGM.
Bum, bum, bum.
I had a second of terror that you were going to jump in there.
Next time you pull one of those Neil Diamonds, I'm going to leave you hanging.
No, but sweet CGM, good times never seemed so good. So good. But wanted to call out that, again, as most medical interventions go, this is not a magic bullet. It's just a tool. Talking to a different type 1 diabetic buddy who also works in the industry, he brought up, which I thought was a very good point, that you really need to be thoughtful, intentional about establishing guidelines as to what levels are normal and expected versus what is atypical. There can be a ton of challenges around data interpretation. For example, someone seeing an after meal rise in your blood sugar and assuming they have diabetes versus signals that are actually concerning. And then I'll throw in challenges around becoming kind of obsessed with the data to an unhealthy degree, or even disordered eating as an example. You can also imagine where these companies, there's such a kind of dollar incentive for this huge crowd, this non-diabetic crowd, where their efforts may shift away from how to make the product more available to diabetics versus via insurance, or versus kind of sponsorship benefit programs. And so those two different consumer bases, where you have people that actually have diabetes and need access to the technology, whereas these companies may potentially start prioritizing the Silicon Valley like non-diabetic crowd who's trying to figure out how much oatmeal to eat before their Peloton bike ride, or what the case may be.
Disgusting people.
Yeah, we hate Peloton riders.
Yeah.
Is that a Peloton in your background?
Maybe.
But no, so basically not a magic bullet, but both of their takeaways, they were overall fairly positive in that CGMs are super powerful in allowing people to gain access to this great tool to manage their metabolic health without having to wait for a prescription from their doctor. And so there are potential huge benefits, but just wanted to mention some of those access and population issues, that it's not all sweet Caroline, or whatever I said before.
That is what you said before.
Nice. All right.
Now that's healthy. Healthy.
No,
Sorry,
going.
I thought you were done.
You're right.
Oh, you already are done?
Yeah.
Then let me just hit you with one more time.
Hell yeah.
Now that's healthy.
So that you
Perfect.
know that I appreciate how healthy that was. Zed, I'm excited. We have a new segment for everyone today. We have astonishing human feats.
Oh, wow.
Astonishing human feats.
Wow.
Yeah, you like that?
I like it a lot.
All right. Yeah, so we've explored today how CGMs can inform our medical decisions, allowing us to take our health into our own hands like never before. Well, today's story, Zed, is just about that. Taking ownership of your health and taking your health into your own hands in the most extreme way.
Wow.
You got that stuck in your head?
Yeah.
In the harsh, icy wilderness of Antarctica, a gripping tale of survival and sheer determination unfolded in 1961. Russian surgeon Leonid Rogozov, part of the 6th Soviet Antarctic expedition, faced a life-threatening dilemma. He developed acute appendicitis. And as the only doctor on the team, he realized he would have to perform the surgery on himself to survive.
That's such a surgeon mentality.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, he's got it. There's other, yeah, they're like, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. I got it.
Yeah.
At just 27 years old, Rogozov began experiencing symptoms that he recognized all too well. Tiredness, weakness, and a sharp pain in his abdomen.
Hey, Rosagov, have a Snickers.
Diagnosing himself with acute appendicitis was straightforward, but the solution was anything but. The remote Novolazarevskaya station, where he was stationed, was cut off from the rest of the world by snow and blizzards. The journey back to Russia by sea took 36 days, and the ship wouldn't return for another year, and flying out was impossible. So now, faced with a dire situation, Rogozov made the bold decision to perform an auto-appendectomy. He was confronted with a very difficult situation of life and death, recalls his son, Vladislav. Great name. It's like one of 3 names.
Hey, we have some Russian listeners. So.
Vladislav, hello, thanks for listening. The decision was made under the weight of the Cold War, where failure would not only mean his death, but also a significant blow to Soviet prestige. Oh no. Wouldn't want that.
They would have so easily spun it. They would have been, oh yeah, we had this known American spy doctor, and he couldn't even auto-appendectomy himself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Rogozov meticulously planned the operation, assigning the roles to his colleagues to assist him. He instructed them on how to hand him instruments, position the lamp, and even how to hold a mirror. Get to my good angles, so he could see what he was doing. He prepared them for the worst, detailing how to inject him with adrenaline and perform artificial ventilation if he lost consciousness.
You have most important job of all. If I am dying, put on your Khrushchev mask and tell me you love me and kiss me on the mouth.
Oh, a little socialist fraternal kiss. Well, on the fateful day, Rogozov noted in his diary. Oh, pretty badass guy to have a diary. I like it.
Yeah.
All right.
Didn't hurt too much to write in his diary.
Yeah, they didn't even call it a journal, called it a diary. Like, he's very secure with himself, like me. I see myself in this guy a lot. Anyway, Rogozov noted in his diary, I did not sleep at all last night. It hurts like the devil. A snowstorm whipping through my soul, wailing like 100 jackals.
That's like you when you have to use soap.
Oh, yeah. That is me, wailing like 100 jackals.
That's such a funny term, though. I'm gonna steal that from Rogozov.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's a good way to describe it. Hurts like the devil, whipping through my soul, wailing like 100 jackals. Hey. All right, so despite the fear, he switched into operating mode. Don't let me into my zone. As soon as he injected the local anesthetic, he got into his zone. Sorry, I got myself out of the zone. But he injected the local anesthetic. So unable to use his mirror due to its inverted view, he operated mostly by touch. What does that mean? Does he not know how mirrors work?
Who is this guy?
I cannot work with this backwards man.
Everything is reversed.
So as we laugh, Zed, the operation was grueling. As he cut through his abdominal wall, the pain was intense, and he had to rest every few minutes to avoid passing out. He described the ordeal. That's a jackal. He described the ordeal in his diary. Again, the bleeding is quite heavy, but I take my time. I grow weaker and weaker. My head starts to spin. These actually sound like lyrics to a song.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I grow weaker and
exactly
weaker.
the same.
My head starts to spin. All right. And so he's like, the ghost of him is watching this, right, listening to us right now. She's being like, oh my God, I should have killed myself. All right, here we go. So he was weak, and he finally found his appendix. That sucks, having to look for it. And he noted a dark stain at its base, a sign it was close to bursting. He said, "My heart seized up and noticeably slowed. My hands felt like rubber." He wrote. I don't know if he said it or he wrote it, but it's down. But he persevered, and he removed his appendix, completing the operation after nearly 2 hours with rubber-feeling hands and a noticeably slow heart.
And no mirror.
No mirror. Oh, he has the mirror, but he's so pissed at it, he won't
like
even look at it. Get that piece of shit away from me!
The lighting's all unflattering.
Yes. Oh, I look disgusting. So Rogozov didn't allow himself to rest immediately. He instructed his assistants on how to clean the surgical instruments. Very smart. And only then did he take antibiotics and sleeping tablets. They're like, dude, just take the antibiotics. Like, no, I must finish cleaning. They're like, bro, quit being a martyr about this and just do it.
I must teach you.
Look at me in the eyes while I take antibiotics.
Kiss me.
It's like, oh no, again? All right. Remarkably, just 2 weeks later, after this auto-appendectomy, he was back to his normal duties. Yeah, buddy. This incredible feat of self-surgery turned Rogozov into a national hero. His survival story was used as powerful propaganda tool by the Soviet Union, drawing parallels to Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, who had made history just 18 days earlier.
Wow. Good thing it was the surgeon with appendicitis, not the astronaut.
I know, right?
Rogozov patting Yuri on the head, just like, come on, comrade, it's not rocket science.
Oh, I wish he had an opportunity to say that. 18 days earlier. Wow, they were really a Soviet power team, huh? So both men were seen as symbols of the ideal Soviet hero. Young, determined, one appendix of between two people, and capable of extraordinary feats. Rogozov was awarded the Order of the Red Banner of Labor for his bravery.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I got the Order of the Red Banner of Labor. With a labor with a U in it, too, so it just feels a little bit more foreign to me. So awesome, but he shunned the limelight, returning to his hospital job the day after he got back to Russia.
Shunned mirrors, shunned the limelight. This guy, just a private, humble guy.
Very humble guy. So I thought this was super interesting, Zed, and kind of what we were talking about Yuri. Today, appendectomies are compulsory for Antarctic explorers from several countries, and there are suggestions that future astronauts should undergo the procedure before embarking on missions to Mars or the Moon. I'm guessing they don't mean like right before. They probably mean like just ahead of. But maybe it's like, all right, countdown from 10. Between 5 and 3, we're going to take your appendix out, and then we're going to shoot you off into space.
Wow. So it's like a preventative appendectomy. So just in case they don't want anything to potentially go wrong with the appendicitis with the appendix while like in space, or in the Arctic.
I guess I would like shave my head before I went to space. I knew I wouldn't have a barber, so I might as well. Yeah. So I would remove all vestigial organs. I would remove everything that's like not 100%. Anything that could kill me, adios, you're gone. Very preventative. It's a dangerous game to play. You know what I mean? It's like, I hate for my lungs to kill me one day. Got to get rid of these. Yeah, I know, right?
Wow.
So Vladislav Rogozov reflects on his father's legacy. This is his son. I know their names sound similar. As one of inspiration, the son says, if you find yourself in a seemingly desperate situation, when all the odds are against you, even in the most hostile environment, do not give up. Believe in yourself and fight for life. And Leonid Rogozov's story is a testament to human resilience and the indomitable will to survive, even against the most overwhelming odds.
I like all joking aside, I have so much respect for people like that who persevere and get through these incredibly hard situations.
No kidding.
I feel like I'm the opposite. Have you watched the Fallout show or just familiar with any type of post-apocalyptic? So I could just imagine things start going a little bit wrong and there's a raiding party or something and I stub my toe and am just a little bit hungry. And I feel like I personally at that point would be like, I think I'm good, guys. Where's the death serum? I've had a bad day. I'm going to call it here.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I would have to really talk you down. We'd have to really talk each other down in the post-apocalyptic world.
Every little thing that goes wrong.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi is out, and I'm just like, I'm about to end it. That cyanide pill is looking good right now.
Totally.
Oh, Zed, I don't know if you can hear that, but I certainly can. And you know what that sound means. It is time for our fast fire question.
Gordy and Zed's fast fire questions.
And as always, Zed, we have to start out with our first question, which is, would you rather?
Would you rather?
Zed, would you rather swim at 50 freestyle down and back in a stagnant, warm pond that for sure has brain-eating amoebas in it on the surface, or swim a 50 free with a 5-foot bull shark in the pool?
Oh, this is a very easy one for me. Actually, one of my secret, well, not so secret anymore, fears is those water-dwelling, brain-eating amoebas. Just because it's kind of the same reason I'm afraid of spiders. You know they're deadly, but they're so small and sneaky, and you just never know when they're gonna sabotage your trip to the moon or the Arctic. So I would definitely go with the shark, because 5-foot bull shark. I don't know. Worst case scenario, I have to do an auto amputation because it gets my leg or something, but I feel like I would prefer that. That's an easier solve to me, or an easier problem to confront than these amoebas that I can't see that are eventually going to kill me when they start eating my brain.
Well,
which will be fine in a Fallout scenario.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could see both arguments.
Where do you fall?
I don't know. I'm just not really scared of anything. Both of them kind of sound easy.
Good.
No, the 50 brain-eating amoeba is a lot scarier to me than the 5-foot shark. Would it change if it was just like a big ass normal bull shark?
I think 5-foot shark is pretty normal, pretty average
for a bull shark. They're not like 6-7 feet or anything crazy.
I have no idea.
I don't know. But would it change if it was like a bigger shark? Is the 5-footedness changing your response at all?
A little bit in terms of certain death, because if it's a 12-foot tiger shark and he's hungry, well, he's still not gonna be faster than me or she. Yeah, just talking a really bit. I'm really sowing some bad karma for tiger sharks in Hawaii.
Yeah, it was a bull shark, folks. Do not forget it. All right, Zed, it is time for our next question, which is, would it kill me?
Would it kill me?
That's right, Zed. Would it kill me? Would it kill me if I injected black coffee into my veins? And follow-up question, would I feel peppy?
You would definitely feel peppy. Is it hot or room temperature?
It's room temp or body temp, if that's better.
Doesn't matter too much, but okay. I mean, theoretically, it wouldn't be too different from like an IV getting an electrolyte IV or typical saline solution in your veins. It's really kind of the rate and volume that could be problems. But if you're just getting a regular cup of coffee, room temperature in your veins, you're probably, I don't think you're going to die unless you're allergic to coffee. And you would feel peppy. So I see no downside and would encourage you personally to do it.
How much volume would I have to inject before I popped? I'll follow up. I'll save that for a different question. Just don't even answer that. Pretend I didn't say anything.
What was that?
No, nothing. But it's time for our final fast fire question. The one that is not a question. Everyone's favorite. Everyone's telling me about it. More of these, more of these, more of these. S to D. Ladies and gentlemen, shock the dog.
Shock the dog.
Zed, I have a little thing to tell you about the Valsalva device. It is a little piece of Velcro that goes in astronauts' helmets so they can itch their nose.
Ooh.
Have you ever thought about it? And they're deep sea divers have it too.
Huh.
It's a little Velcro spot. And so that, you ever thought you can't like take your helmet off, but like imagine how awful it would be. Like, your appendix is busting out. You got your Yuri Gagarin helmet on. You can't take it off. You got an itchy freaking nose. Oh, man.
Jeez. Yeah. Vladislav, stretch my nose. Yeah, you can't. What the hell?
No, you just gotta go and just rub it against it.
And it's called the Valsalva device because have you heard of Valsalva, like the Valsalva maneuver?
Yes, it's related to that. It's related to that would be like blowing through your nose, right, or something like that, like a.
Well, I'm familiar with
bearing down.
Yeah, bearing down as a maneuver, like if you're trying to push something out of your butt, or really, or when you're doing a heavy squat or something, basically really constricting your core and bearing down is the term they always use.
Well, that is right. Yeah, and you can itch your nose while bearing down so that you don't pass out from G-force when you're taking off in a spaceship. Zed, this was a really fun episode. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Gordy, for being special. And heck, I learned something too. Hope that's okay.
Yeah, I did. That's good. Honestly, that feels good. I'm going to sleep well tonight. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Going Through Health with Gordy and Zed. Listen each week on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. New episodes available early morning, video soon. Keep an eye out for it. Keep an eye on our Spotify. Our Instagram, actually. Instagram, at Going Through Health Podcast. Follow us. Follow us on Spotify. 5 stars. Shower us with stars. Interstellar with it. Any questions, email us at gordyandzed@gmail.com and we will try to answer them. Zed, we got an email?
Hell yeah.
We got an email. Thank you, everyone, for listening. G-Jenks out.
Stay healthy, my friends.
Stay healthy, my friends.
Hey, this is Zed. This podcast is intended solely for general informational purposes and does not represent the provision of medical advice or the practice of any professional healthcare services. No clinician-patient relationship is formed. Nice try. And the use of the information provided or materials linked is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not meant to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should seek medical advice for any health issues they may have and should consult their healthcare providers for any such concerns.